Welcome to the Empowering Women podcast. Together, we will hear from ambitious and inspiring career women as they share their stories of success and overcoming career challenges. And now, your host, Mel the Engineer.
Hello, and welcome to the Empowering Women podcast. On the Empowering Women podcast, we feature women in leadership, women who are typically working in male-dominated fields. Our hope is that by sharing their journey and insights, we can provide you, dear listener, with guidance and inspiration. First things first, the Empowering Women in Industry inaugural conference is happening September 26, 2019 in the Windy City. It will be hosted at the Chicago Athletic Club. I know I've mentioned this before, but this is a beautiful historic hotel located in the heart of downtown. It's within easy walking distance of the Art Museum, the Chicago Bean, and many other attractions. So if you're ready to maybe kickstart your career or reignite your energy to climb the ladder, we'd love for you to join us. At the date of this episode's release, you might have 1 or 2 more weeks to still get the early bird rate for the conference. And the early bird rate is $250 for just the conference or $350 for the conference and the awards gala dinner that night. So not long after this episode goes live, the price will go up to the full registration rate. So you can register now at the discounted rate at empoweringwomeninindustry.com. That's empoweringwomeninindustry.com, and I can't wait to see you there. Okay, today's guest, Sepi Saidi, is an engineer and entrepreneur. I'll read her bio here in a moment, but I want to highlight that I believe this is our first guest who is currently an active entrepreneur. After 11 years working for the Department of Transportation in North Carolina, our guest made the difficult and brave decision to found her own consulting firm. I also want to highlight, Sepi immigrated from Iran to North Carolina as a teenager, so can we stop and take a moment to just appreciate that? After immigrating to one of the arguably less diverse and potentially less accepting parts of the country, Sepi earned an engineering degree. She found success working for a government entity, the Department of Transportation, and now has her own growing and successful engineering consulting business. I think that deserves a virtual high five. This is awesome. Sepi openly shares her wisdom in the interview, so I hope you'll stick around for the entire thing. Let's go to her bio now, and then we'll get right into the interview. Sepi Saidi is a visionary leader who founded Sepi Engineering and Construction in 2001. Ms. Saidi has led the company to become a premier full-service civil, environmental planning, and construction management engineering firm in the Southeast. The firm's awards include Fast 50 Firm by Triangle Business Journal, the Zweig White Hot Firm List, Inc. 5000, and being ranked as a top 500 design firm on the Engineering News Record's 2017 list. A professional engineer and alumna of North Carolina State University with degrees in civil and agricultural engineering, Ms. Saidi has been named by the Triangle Business Journal as the 2018 Business Person of the Year, was recently selected as a Charlotte Business Journal 2018 Women in Business Achievement Award winner, and has been inducted into the North Carolina Business Hall of Fame. Sepi Incorporated is dedicated to providing a unique workspace and environment for its employees to plan, design, build, and give back to the communities in which they serve. So even if you are not an engineer, I think you're going to get a lot out of this interview. So stick around. I'll be with you again at the end to discuss some details and a little bit more about the conference. And I look forward to hearing your feedback about this episode. Sepi, thank you so much for joining me today on the Empowering Women podcast.
I am happy to be here, Mel. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your early career sort of decisions. Why did you decide to pursue engineering, and what did your early career look like?
I decided to pursue engineering because, for me coming from Iran, that my parents had sent us here, the expectation was that we would choose engineering, medicine, or law. It was not, at the time, it was not something that you would kind of have a free choice. It was a really firm expectation because that was what was important to them. And that's all I kind of felt. I felt that expectation. I was thinking to myself that engineering was easier to me than medicine or law, and I felt okay. I'm going to pursue engineering. So I did it mainly because of the expectation, and also I thought that it's going to make a solid career and income for me.
Absolutely. That's interesting. That's not an answer that I hear very often from women, that there is an expectation that they went into engineering. So that's pretty fascinating. So your parents had this expectation. Did that influence how you felt about it, or did you come to find a passion for it?
I have to say that I did come to find a passion for it. Um, a lot of times, I think there's a misconception about the women in Middle East, or specifically in Iran. The environment that I grew up with was very empowering for women. I was not at all told that I cannot be engineer or it's not good for you. So my mother had a career. I had a lot of female career women in my family, and it was very much instilled in me and my sister that we are going to grow up and be independent. We're financially independent, and we're going to choose a career that would be strong. So that was mainly, and I was in high school where you could choose in Iran, you could choose your major into math and science or literature, I think, or art. And I was in an all girl middle school, no, high school. And we had a great deal of females in the math and science, and they were absolutely brilliant, everybody. And it was difficult. So I was surrounded by a lot of very, very smart women, and I never thought anything different. That is not an option.
So let's get into a little bit more detail. What were your first few positions in engineering? What kind of field were they in?
My field was right after I graduated from North Carolina State University. I went to work for the Department of Transportation, and my first job was in traffic signal design. I was a traffic engineer.
How long did you work for the Department of Transportation, and what was that environment like working as a woman engineer?
I worked there for 11 years, and it was, definitely females were scarce. There weren't that many women there, and it was just very male dominated. That's all, it was just we didn't have a lot of females there in engineering or in leadership. So it was totally male dominated. And, my particular circumstances, being a female from Iran and being in the South and being engineering, so that added another layer that was sort of isolating, that there wasn't another woman there that was from another country that I remember. So I kind of got used to being um, one of the few. I never thought anything of it. I never focused on that. It's looking back, I kind of wonder, but I never really focused on the fact that I'm a female in engineering in the South, and I always joke about it, one of the least popular countries in the world. So I never thought about it. I was trying to learn and advance myself. I was very ambitious, very ambitious. I wanted to learn a lot. And that was at the beginning of when we started using a lot of computers to design our various aspects of our design. So that was all new, and I was learning a lot of new things. I was interested in getting my professional engineering license, which requires you to work under a professional engineer for 4 years before you get set for your exam. So I had my personal career goals, and I was focused on that.
Were there any mentors or people that kind of helped guide you along the way when you were at DOT?
At DOT, not so much direct mentors. I didn't have any specific, somebody who would specifically open a door or guide me. That was not my experience. I don't remember that.
Okay. Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
I have thought about that quite a bit, and I feel that probably fundamentally I've always had a real deep sense of curiosity and sense of I need something new. I need a challenge. I've always wanted a new challenge. So once I learn something and I understand it, then I get bored. So I need to learn something different. And I believe that had a lot to do with why I decided to become an entrepreneur. I probably that was a big part of it, and the other part of it was that I wanted to be in a leadership role as a woman. I wanted to be able to lead and clarify my vision and bring other people on board with my vision, and that seemed extremely challenging. So for that was like the ultimate challenge, and I think that's one of the other reasons that I wanted to start a company. But it wasn't an easy decision. I was not one of those, folks that in a college wanted to be an entrepreneur, or it was a gradual process of evolving. When I left DOT, after 11 years, I was recruited by a small startup firm in Raleigh, and when I went there, I think that had a lot to do with it. That kind of startup excitement the company had, and everything was new, and it was so much newness to everything. And I found that so exciting because when I was at DOT, I was focused on engineering and design and project management. And when I came to this kind of small entrepreneur company, I was responsible for many things, for business development, for bringing work in, to recruit, to find opportunities in other places. And I really love that. I think the fact that I loved that and not was scared of it made me believe that this could be a lot of fun for me, that I could continue doing this. And when I left that company, my focus was I'm going to leave here and go work for a larger engineering firm at a higher capacity to have bigger responsibilities. But that particular position I was offered in that I really loved. I had a great offer in Texas, Houston, and a really good offer in Florida. And at the time, my children were small, so I was very hesitant to leave again and kind of put roots down and create relationships. So that was another reason. I talked to a lot of colleagues, and they encouraged me to do this, and I was not sure if I can do it. I really didn't know how to start a business. I had no idea how to start a business.
Yeah, well, it sounds like fun. I think what you're describing about needing to learn and getting maybe bored once you've kind of conquered something,
Yes,
entrepreneurship kind of seems like the natural next step.
yes.
When you look back on the decision to start your own business and maybe the initial years of starting up and getting going, what would you say were some of your most important steps to to be successful as an entrepreneur? Maybe your ingredients to success.
So you're talking about, let me make sure I understand the question. The first steps that looking back, I think were very important ingredients to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think persistence is really, really important. And believing in your vision, believe whatever that vision is, whatever it is. Believing and being excited about that vision is extremely important. When you're excited about your vision and you believe in it, you can do more. You put up with a lot more, like not having paid that much money or long days, long hours, because there's something there you're looking forward to really achieving that sense of I believe in this and I'm going to achieve it. I always compare that to somebody who trains for a race or a Olympics or tournament. There's that goal that is very important. It's clear, very clear to them what they want. So a lot of hardship maybe in the process doesn't seem very hard to them because they're very clear about that vision. So I would say believing in your vision, being clear about the vision, and being very persistent. So you can't, take no for an answer, or when you have a setback, accept it. You just cannot accept setbacks. You have to, whenever there's a setback or there's a major challenge, you have to look at it. I would look at it and I say, okay, what did I learn from this? What do I need to do differently? How can I get around this? There's got to be another way around this. And that's how my mind always works to this day. When I look at obstacles, I really don't see obstacle. I see there's an opportunity for me to solve this. There must be another way that I can solve this. So those are really important. That tenacity to keep going, it's really important.
You're listening to the Empowering Women podcast. Our guest today is engineer and entrepreneur Sepi Saidi. You can re-listen to this episode and listen to other episodes of the Empowering Women podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also visit our website at empoweringwomenpodcast.com, where you can find additional resources and get in touch with us. Would you describe your vision, and has it changed over time?
My vision has, yes, it has changed some, not a great deal. It is ultimately, I always wanted to start and grow a multidiscipline civil engineering company. And not civil, I have to take that back, engineering, because now we do other things that are not directly civil, but an engineering consulting company. And I wanted to have various disciplines because each one creates a different market and a different challenge. Again, I wanted to grow the company because that is exciting to me. So my vision was to do that. And, it was really tough to go through the recession. So that kind of was a setback that nobody anticipated. It was really hard. But I hung on. I mean, I really believed that I really had faith that I can do this. And I think that's really important. Really important.
I agree with that. And I just want to add to that. I read in one of your other interviews that you had a friend who said something to the effect of, well, we've decided we're not going to participate in this recession.
Yes, that was true. It was very important. She was a business colleague who had come to my office for a meeting, and she owned a public relations firm. And I told her, how's business? Her name is Patty. I said, Patty, how's business? She said, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And I said, so why are you smiling? You look happy. She said, because this morning I had a meeting with my staff and we decided that we're not going to participate in the recession. And I thought that was just a great, great idea. It's like, just amazing. So immediately I said, that is a very good idea. So it highlighted the fact that we have choice over our attitude. There's a lot of things we don't have choice over, but we have choice over our attitude. And I decided that I told the same thing to my staff. I said, we're not going to participate in the recession. And that helped me a lot because I stayed positive. I stayed very focused on other opportunities. I said there must be other opportunities. There's got to be something. And by changing that attitude, I was able to find opportunities that otherwise I wasn't looking at.
That's an excellent sort of mind frame change, and I think that it also highlights what you did as a leader to kind of take that on and instill that with your staff. So that's awesome. It's a great lesson.
Thank you.
What do you see as the most important traits and actions a leader can take to cultivate a motivated and collaborative team?
I would say that if a leader wants to cultivate a collaborative team, probably most importantly is to understand the dynamic of the team members, because each individual has a different attitude and perspective and vision. Understanding the team members and creating that synergy inside the team members, so you cannot be the only person who pulls this together. The team members have to feel comfortable with each other and trust each other. So I say that the leader should be able to step out of the mix, and they should be able to, and they would still be able to collaborate and create ideas and work really well together. So probably that's the most important thing is I would say a leader would step into that team to make sure everybody is heard, everybody can express their opinion, to create and cultivate that environment. I think leaders have to bring that environment together. And once you create that environment, then you have to allow everybody to take advantage of that and come up with their ideas and evolve that, take it to the next level. But the most important thing is create that environment, create that trust and that openness and that freedom for people to be there and to support each other.
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic answer. And part of what you described actually aligns with some of the recent research showing how important it is to have the emotional comfort within the team setting. So the ability for people to feel comfortable voicing their opinion, which is exactly what you just described. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's that emotional part is extremely important. And I think that today we live in an environment that's very different than it was even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And I describe it in my office or to the team. I describe it that we want to allow individuals to bring their whole self into the office. That if they have personal issues with their elderly care, if you have an issue with your child care, if you have other, whatever it is, it's not always just you come into the office and focus on work. There's a lot of other pieces of who we are that we should be able to, allow to bring and have that feeling that, okay, I can talk to somebody about this, or I can find support, or if I need to leave early or come early, it's not going to be judged. That I am working in a safe environment that allows me to be my whole self. And from there, you could do a lot more with that. You really can take that to a lot bigger places for individuals, and it's much, much more expansive. I think a lot of times we fear that if we allow individuals to bring other pieces of their lives into the office, they're distracted. But they're going to be distracted anyway, whether you allow them to talk about it or not. That's a part of their who they are. But if we allow them to seek help or ask for guidance or be able to talk about it, then at least you feel like, okay, I can be myself, and people still respect me. They still feel like I'm a part of the team, and we're all in this together. We can take this to the next level. So I think it's really that piece, the emotional piece, is extremely important.
I could not agree more. Okay, I'd like to ask you, have you encountered any specific obstacles as a woman or a woman of color in engineering?
Yes. So I definitely, as a woman, I would say not so much color, because I am not identified that way, and you can't see that when you look at me. I mean, I don't have any color, but as far as the accent and not being here, so yes, there are obstacles. Has been absolutely, there's been obstacles. I would say, so I can expand if you want.
Yes, absolutely. And whatever you're comfortable with sharing, in particular, I think what our listeners like to hear about is, how you overcame these things or just how you handled them.
Sure. So I think the most definitely there are obstacles, and there are some obstacles that are not, they're invisible. It's not a clear, we do not hire women who are from Middle East for this project. It's never some, the complexity of the situation right now is that I think prior to maybe the ERA and all of that conversation in the early 60s, it was a very clear discrimination. We only want men for this job, or we are going to, pay men more than women because they have to support a family, or many different. So it was kind of quite a clear discrimination. So after that, it's not as specifically said, but it's invisible. And the reason that I call it invisible discrimination, or sometimes they call it glass stealing. Maybe that's what the same thing is, that it's not really specifically said to you, but then you feel like the relationship and the network and the opportunities are much more, and promotions and many things are much more readily available to men than they are to women. And I think that it has been many, I mean, of course, numerous. I would not, it would be impossible for me to say that I haven't. It absolutely has been. What I decided to do from the beginning, it was really a decision I made, was that I decided that that's a people, anybody who does behave that way, either they're doing it consciously or they're doing it unconsciously. And it's quite very possible that a lot of times it's unconscious. They just feel like, I remember one specific incident. This exactly happened. I remember it was a board that I had been involved in outside of my company, but in a similar organization. And the president of the board promoted a gentleman who had been in numerous committees, been a past president before, like been in every level of that organization for like 15 years. He put this guy chair of this particular committee that I was in. So I called him and I said, I wanted to ask you that you have promoted this gentleman, you've put this gentleman in this committee that I'm on, that I wanted to chair. I really want to chair this, but he has been all around, everywhere, various roles in this organization. I think it's time for some new, fresh ideas to come to the surface. And he said, Sepi, I hear you, but I'm telling you, I'm not being a good old boy here. I just know him, and I feel I know him, and I'm comfortable with him. So I said, so maybe we're looking at at being a good old boy in a different way. Are you hearing yourself? You're saying that because I know this person and I'm comfortable with him, then I'm going to keep having them. How is somebody else who you don't know and you're not comfortable with is going to get opportunity?
Wow.
So a lot of that's what I call sometimes unconscious discrimination, is that if you're a female, naturally you're not, and I say naturally because there's a lot of, because the workforce has been populated by men over centuries, And women have been in the workforce, let's say, for the past 60 years. That's not a long time. I don't even want to say maybe even the women's right to vote. It happened in early 1900s. That's not a long time comparing to, hundreds of years of men being in the workforce. So naturally, there's a lot more relationships. There's a lot more trust. There's a lot more, camaraderie. So for women to be able to be there, they have to build this relationship. So you're pretty much the chances of a female engineer graduating from college and going and having her peers, female peers, be leading other organizations is much less than having men graduating, having male college friends leading. So they automatically have relationships that we don't have. So for women, we pretty much have to start from, scratch. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust. You have to work on proving that you're as good as the next person because you haven't been in that circle. So it's a lot more difficult. So for me, I recognize that, all right, this is the situation. That's how I live. That's how I look at the world. I said, this is the reality. I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. What can I do about it? I can be proactive. I can stay in the game, as I said. I'm going to build relationship with my male colleagues and would ask them to support me because they have already built those relationships. So if they endorse me, I can go quicker, farther than if I just sit back here and complain about this situation. So I actively built a very strong network of both female and male colleagues and more men because they're in my industry, that's majority. And I didn't shy away from, asking for support, asking for, if I needed a reference, if I needed a board I would ask them. And because I had built that relationship with them, they would support me. And I always say that when we have male in the leadership, and I know the word sponsor is a really important word that I've heard used, even more important than mentoring. It's much more important than mentoring. So when they sponsor women in the business or anywhere else, because of they have a capital, they've built a capital with their reputation, they sponsor women, then you can really build on that and move it faster. So I would say that I would not shy away from asking for support, building relationship with everybody, men, colleagues, doesn't matter, women, anybody. I would not take it personally when I see behavior that's not, this feels to me that I'm not being treated fairly. Typically, I don't take it personally because I think about it. Either they're aware of what they're doing, which makes them not a very good person, or they're not aware. And if they're not aware, so it's not intentional. So I don't take it personally because I feel that if I take it personally, then it makes me want to, it affects me in a very negative way. It's very hard to overcome when you take things personally. So I always tell myself it's never personal because they don't really know me. If they know me, they would like me and they would support me. That's how I look at it. First of all, they don't know me. I'm going to do my very best to build a relationship and make sure that they know that I'm qualified and I'm capable and I can do this. And then, just plowing ahead. The key is women have to, in my opinion, have to stay in the game. Let's stay in the game. I know it's very difficult when you have a family and children. You try to raise your family. You want to be attentive. You want to build a career. I think there are many ways that we can do that, but not quitting on the job. If you love your career, if you really are passionate about advancing, let's focus on ways that you could do it with your help of a husband or a partner or building a community around ourselves, whether it's a neighbor or a church or whatever people feel comfortable. Building communities and not giving up on the idea that it's important for me to stay in this. That I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I agree with you because that especially in engineering, there's the leaky pipeline. There's quite a bit of attrition. The smaller number of women that we do get into the field, there's quite a few who end up leaving. They don't end up staying
Yes.
for the
Yes.
duration of their career in engineering. Absolutely. So you mentioned a few times just now, you mentioned the need to build those relationships. So I wonder if there are any specific tactics you would share about, if someone's at the beginning of their career and they feel overwhelmed by that concept, what would you recommend as approaching that?
I would say to start very small. It doesn't have to be I'm going to convert everybody around me that I'm great. It can be very small. You can start by, first of all, by really showing up when you say you show up, whether it is a committee you get involved in, where is the task you took on, it's an extracurricular nonprofit you're involved in. Doing what you say you do, that's really, really important. Not coming up with excuses. Clearly understanding your objective. So if you're trying to build a relationship, it starts really with the people, your co-workers in the work environment, with your co-workers, like with your supervisor, some of that. Being supportive of the co-workers, believing that they are capable, that how can I help them? One of the biggest lessons that I learned, it was somebody who gave me an advice. It was at the beginning of my career when I was working in business development. He was a much more seasoned business developer. He said to me that focus on how you can do something for them without asking them for help. Don't go in there, ask for something. First, see what you can do at any level you are, whether you have a very huge, big network like I have today or a very small network that I had then. There are ways you could offer support in what they are trying to achieve. So when you go in there and try to support your co-workers, so in the team, I would say be supportive of the co-workers, your team members, understanding team members, being a good, positive influence. People respond to positivity in a big way. Being positive, being solution oriented, focusing on solving problems. If there are obstacles, if there are issues, trying to look at how can I come up with a solution before I start complaining about the problem. So having that positive attitude and being supportive of team members, focusing on learning, focusing on solutions, you start developing a reputation immediately as somebody that's great to work with. And you do you take care of your tasks, you support other people, you look for good ideas, you bring good ideas to the table. And the other very, very important thing is expressing yourself. Another, I remember vividly, it was like we were having drinks after work with a bunch of people, and one of the engineer friends of mine had brought her husband to the meeting. This was like at the very beginning of my career. We had a happy hour, like a year into it. And her husband had been working for a very large pharmaceutical company for many years. I don't remember asking him, but he said, try never to be quiet in a meeting. Voice an opinion, because if you don't voice your opinion, you will not be noticed. And that's something that intimidates younger people a great deal. So finding an opportunity, don't think that my opinion is not important. They have done this for 30 years. It's extremely important to hear everybody's opinion, not underestimating your opinion. Even if it comes out of your mouth and you immediately say, oh my God, don't worry about it. Express your opinion. That's very important. Have a voice, but also allow other people to have a voice. So collaboration, positivity, solution driven, and supporting each other. I think those are the beginnings. And then it builds on that. It just builds and builds and builds. And suddenly you find yourself, in a short period of time, and you grow your network and build a reputation.
You're listening to the Empowering Women podcast.
Changes would you like to see in the engineering career space overall?
In the engineering career, I mean, as a career, I don't want to see the change, but I would love to see more females and minorities in the field. I would love to see in the leadership roles. And I think we're making very slow progress. Partly, maybe it's because a lot of young people don't consider maybe engineering as cool as some other careers. I was in a conference last summer that somebody mentioned this. They said so like maybe 2 decades ago, there was this fabulous TV shows about lawyers. And there was female lawyers who were really, it was a great show. It was interesting. People loved it. Then there was this ER, for example, about making medical field really cool and fun. Even architects have a more varied, more women in architecture. So I would say maybe maybe we could find a really fabulous TV show about engineers being cool to get the young people interested in engineering. But somehow we have to do it. We have to change our image. I think that's what we need to do. I would say that we contribute so much to our environment. So, I mean, everything that from your tap water that you're drinking, from your electricity in your room, from your roads, your building, your home, engineers are foundations of a healthy community. And we really are not perceived as much or given that level of importance that I think the engineering deserves. So I would like for us to be perceived and understood more as the important work we do in the environment, in the communities, and to be able to attract more young people into engineering, both females and men. We want more. And I have to always say that when I focus on getting more women, whether it's leadership role in the business or anywhere, it's not in exclusion of men. It's both. We need inclusive environments that supports a very healthy environment, both for men and women, equally.
Absolutely. So I'd like to ask you, what do you think is important for today's leaders to do proactively, perhaps something differently, to ensure this diverse pipeline of talent comes in and stays in the industry?
Well, some of the areas that I focus on is I get involved in my NC State and the university I've been in. I've spoken to many classes. I have gone to the associations where we need to be out there. I think leaders need to be out there speaking about the cool, great, awesome work engineers do, and how welcoming we are, and how much we want to have more young people in our careers. So I think just being visible and showing our passion for our industry will go a very long way.
So I'd like to share a quote. So Brant McGill said, "Curiosity is one of the great secrets of happiness." And I'd like to ask what that means to you.
I completely agree. Completely agree. When I gave a talk on curiosity a few months ago, they asked me to speak about curiosity. I think that is so true, because when you look at the world through the lens of curiosity, you are not being judgmental. You are open. You are interested in learning. You want to receive. And with that, and through that lens, everything is more inclusive. When we are curious, even when we think about our neighbor who may be not cutting their grass exactly right. So instead of saying, why aren't they doing what, that's just terrible. This person is not cutting their grass this way. But if you're looking at it with a sense of curiosity, you ask them, is there a reason why you're doing this? And maybe there would be an amazing learning opportunity for us. So I feel that if we look at the world through the lens of curiosity, then we're not putting people, things, ideas in a box. We're open, we're always receiving, we're always learning, and it creates more bonding opportunity with people from different countries in the world, different religions, different faiths. Just asking them about what do you think about, how do you do this, what's important to you, building relationships, learning. It's incredible. I think that curiosity, try new foods, it gets you out of your comfort zone. You go find another place. If you're have curiosity about another part of the world, it makes you travel and see something different. I think curiosity is absolutely important and essential to happiness.
You've also spoken about the value of building bridges with people that you don't have anything in common with. Could you tell us your thoughts on that?
Yes, and actually what I said is building bridges with people you think you have nothing in common with.
Ah,
Because I believe that we can find a common point with everybody if you approach it from the point of curiosity and not in the from the aspect of, oh, I know this person already, without talking to them, I don't have anything in common, I don't want to have anything to do with them. And the reason I came to that was from the beginning of my career. That's how it started. When I went to work from graduating from college, went to work at Department of Transportation. In that environment, I grew up in a very, very big city. Tehran is a really large. When I was there back in 1979, it was 78. It was probably over 7 million people. So I grew up in a very big metropolitan city. And then I went to work in an environment that folks had really grown up in very small towns and farms and country. So initially I went there, I said, I have nothing in common with them. I grew up in a city. I don't share their hobbies. I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't, speak their language. I have nothing in common with these people. And I'm actually, not only that, I'm better. I had this perspective. I'm better. So once I started kind of thinking about my mindset after being there for 7 or 8 months, I said to myself, why should they be interested in me or respect me if I don't feel that way about them? So I need to change my perspective. I need to be curious about them, see if there's something we have in common, and learn and understand their world. And through that process of being curious about them and talking to them and learning from them, I was able to build bridges and understand that fundamentally we are really all the same people. We look for the same things, having freedom and having happiness and contributing to our communities and building a great career, contributing to our families. It's all the same. So I think that that's why I believe that you can build bridges with people you think you have nothing in common. You absolutely can. And that has been my really one of my biggest secrets to my success, I would say, is that embracing people from different walks of life.
well spoken. Thank you. How would you describe your core values?
I would say that my core values are what very fundamental to me is that every human being has respect, and we're equal, and it has to be treated with utmost integrity and respect. And so that is very core to me, because I never want to think that because of people's positions or wealth or whatever they have, that they should be treated differently. So that core is a real fundamental core value for me. Honesty is a very, very big core value for me. It's huge. I mean, if I can answer a question, I don't feel I can, I would just say that. I would not come up with some kind of fib to just get away from. It's very big for me. Honesty is really big. Positivity is very important to me. Being positive and choosing, or I should really say my value is choosing positivity. Really important to choose positivity. And I would say the other really important value for me is supporting the environment and being the communities we live in. It's important to be collaborative and give back. To give back, that's also very important to me.
Thank you. My last question, I really just want to open up the floor to you. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would want to share with our audience? So particularly career women who are looking to grow as a professional or perhaps even become an entrepreneur themselves.
I think that, yes, I think that the fact, I would say to the females who are interested in growing their career and want to have a family and they want to have the different aspects, I would tell them that it's really not about balance and it's not really about having it all. It's about choosing decisions, making decisions that creates happiness and balance for your family and that for your particular lifestyle and what's important to you, and craft your life. Doesn't if every kid plays 5 sports and plays 10 instruments, great. You have to craft your own life with your partner, and you can have a very satisfying career and a very satisfying home life, but you have to be intentional about it and craft it based on what you want for yourself, with your partner, with your life, and it's absolutely doable. And having courage about that. Don't worry about if it doesn't fit the stereotype. Don't worry about it. Really believe in your passion for your life and your career. Just trust that. And for I think for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, I would say that just you gotta just get in there. You cannot stay back and try to figure everything out and then try to jump in, because you can't. Because if you have never done it, you don't know how to do it. It's impossible for one to try to figure all the pieces, because when you get into it, then there are all these new challenges come that you couldn't predict it. So I don't be too hesitant or too cautious. Get comfortable with the risk. That's what I suggest. You understand your risk. Is it, am I quitting my job? Get comfortable with that amount of risk that you're taking, and then get in there. You may not be successful the first time. You may be absolutely successful the first time, but you never know, and don't back down. Stay with it. If you're passionate about it, stay with it.
Well said. That was great. Thank you. And I liked a lot what you were describing about crafting your own sort of life experience, especially in this age of social media. I think it's in human nature to compare yourself sometimes to other people. Yes. And in some ways, or perhaps in many ways, social media exacerbates that or gives us an avenue to do that we didn't have in the past. And I think it is important to reflect on, what is it that I really want in my life to be happy?
Yes, absolutely. That's been one of the really wisdom pieces that I've gained over the years. I would have liked somebody would tell me that when I was 25 years old. But I really have been, self-awareness is a really key part of happiness, and truly figuring out and not making choices based on fear. I think a lot of time we make a lot of choices or live our lives from an angle of fear rather than angle of joy. If we look at it from, I'm going to, and you probably heard me say, I'm doing my business is because I really have fun, and we really have fun at the office. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing. I really do believe, I really believe in it. I would be same thing for our choices with family and children and wanting to have a career. The balance that everybody used to talk about, it's something that's created in somebody's mind. It's not for every single family. So every family can create that for themselves. And being intentional, we just have to really, the key, in my opinion, to happiness is crafting your own life and making choices based on joy.
Oh, well, Sepi, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for sharing time with us today and for being a part of the Empowering Women podcast.
Thank you so much, Mel. And I really appreciate this podcast. I appreciate the fact that this is happening. So I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I found Sepi's insights and advice to be a breath of fresh air. A couple of the things that stood out to me the most are some quotes that I'd like to sort of reshare with you. She said, "It's not really about balance, and it's not really about having it all. It's about choosing, making decisions that create happiness and balance for your family, your particular lifestyle, and what's important to you. You can craft that." And a bit later, she said, "The key to happiness is crafting your own life and making choices based on joy." What a succinct way to encapsulate this idea. I mentioned in the episode that I think it's part of human nature to compare ourselves to other people. I know I've certainly been guilty of this. But if we can step into self-awareness, if we can meditate on our own values and priorities, I think we can move towards crafting a life that is for our own happiness. We can focus on what we want success to look like in our life rather than perhaps wishing we had the exact situation of success that someone else has. I would like to meditate on that idea more and crafting a career and life based on joy. Other bits of wisdom Sepi shared that I loved were the concept of showing up, and I think that this is tied to being present, bringing your awareness into the moment, especially to the things you commit yourself to. And I'd like to ask, are there any techniques you've learned for doing this? Or maybe you've read a great book on this topic. I'd love if you would reach out and share that with me, and then I can share it with the Empowering Women audience as well. And then finally, Sepi said, have a voice, but also allow other people to have a voice. Collaboration, positivity, solution-driven, and supporting each other, those are the beginnings of building success. So with that, we would love to have the chance to collaborate with you on your career ambition and success. We hope you'll join us in Chicago this September. Learn more about the Empowering Women in Industry Conference by visiting empoweringwomeninindustry.com. You've got just a little bit more time to get the discounted early bird rate. Okay, ladies, it was a pleasure to share this time with you today. To reach me, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter as Mel the Engineer. That's just Mel, M-E-L, the Engineer. And my email is meltheengineer@gmail.com. Until next time, here's to your success.
Thank you for joining us for an episode of the Empowering Women podcast with Mel the Engineer. If you find the Empowering Women podcast helpful, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you download your podcasts. Our show is a partnership between Mel the Engineer and the Empowering Women in Industry organization. Learn more by visiting empoweringwomenpodcast.com.